Committee on the Whole is called back to order. Senator Dueñas, you're recognized.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all of our colleagues that are here on time to get started with the business of the day. Before we bring in public health, Mr. Chair, I thought it was important, and the administration, I thought it was important to clear some things up that are floating around in terms of the legislature's duty and responsibility and activism to try to help the child care centers. First of all, Mr. Chair, in the governor's budget request, there was no request for appropriation for child care, Mr. Chairman. When we convened with the substitute bill on the floor and the administration brought forward their list of things that they believe were left out of the budget, not one of them represented an appropriation for child care. Mr. Chair, in all the discussions, there was one item or one time when this item and this critical appropriation was brought up, and that was during an oversight with the Guam Visitors Bureau as well as the airport. And the governor had already used her transfer authority and her ability to use funds to make sure that the child care centers were made whole via her ability to do that to the tune of $5 million. Why that hasn't continued, I don't know. Also, during a recent event at the Micronesian Mall, many of the child care centers, I'm sure who will be in attendance today, came to speak to many of us, Mr. Chairman, that there is a structural problem currently right now with the issue of the financial stability of the child care centers, and it has been going on for a long time. In fact, Mr. Chairman, my understanding was they received a payment, luckily, a day before they were supposed to be in here, from what I understand from most of them. My staff had called me this morning to tell me that they will be providing the body with research that shows that this has been going on for really over 12 months. This is not a new issue. It was only brought to our attention once again when that issue was broached during an oversight hearing for something completely different. So I look forward to public health coming forward with the administration today to discuss why they've put this appropriation request along with TYPHOON BAVI request, along with what we understand might be $26 million now for the airport request. Why this has all been bundled and commingled if this, appropriation is so necessary for the emergent needs of the child care situation. Once again, Mr. Chair, I broach the truth and the reality of what's been going on in the executive branch. It is not a funding matter. It is a matter of managing these programs properly, keeping these centers whole, keeping them operating, and bringing down a cohesive programmatic change to this legislature in order to make sure that we are all being serious about taking care of this structural deficiency. Many of us have talked to the child care centers, and they're asking for policy in the future to ensure that there is stability within these programs, as they have been experiencing this now, not just in the last few months, but I think for close to a year now. So once again, I have no interest of using any time, Mr. Chair. I've considered have used all my time for the rounds that we will have with the child care centers, listening during our deliberation on this appropriation. But I figured it was more valuable for me to kind of explain and set the context and the truth of why we're here, and also to let the child care centers know that we are only aware of this issue at this point, that there are structural problems, and that this appropriation is necessary. And for me, at least, it's probably one of the real appropriations within this request from the governor's office that needs to be addressed immediately. Once again, Public Health yesterday asked for this pause. They asked us to move this because of their function that they had to, I guess, open up, do a ribbon cutting for another facility. So this was not the legislature's doing. We were ready to work yesterday, but it was at the request of the executive branch, particularly Public Health. Mr. Chair, I hope that clears up any ambiguity and any rumors out there and from people who had a structural misunderstanding maybe of what our obligations are and what we're willing to do and are going to do to support the child care centers, that we are acting because of the fact that we have recently received this notification of the need to act, and we will act. And once again, there was no request in the governor's request for child care centers on her budget, and there was no request and no decision by the administration when they came down to represent revenues that they needed funds for child care and support for child care centers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll take the chair.
Thank you, Senator Duenas. We're going to go ahead and take a short recess.
The Committee of the Whole is now called back to order. At this time, colleagues, we will bring in Public Health and the administration. We will have Public Health sworn in and remind the executive branch that they are also still under oath to take up the next appropriation request in the governor's special session call to the legislature. So we will take a recess momentarily while we have the panel come in. Committee of the Whole is back in order. Public Health will now be sworn in for their testimony.
Please raise your right hand. Under penalty of perjury, do you affirm that any and all information you provide today, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Mr. Chair, under oath, you may proceed.
Thank you, and once again, thank you to all my Republican colleagues who showed up on time to work this morning to hear the plight of the child care centers and to discuss this appropriation that's requested for health care.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes, a point
I think
of
it's just inappropriate to call it by party here. It should I think that was very inappropriate. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you, but I don't. Mr. Speaker, you're recognized at this time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the panel for being here. And as we did with the initial section, can we have somebody from the administration explain to us how we got this bill before us?
Can Public Health tell us why we're here for this appropriation?
Thank you, Senators. Thank you, Senator Duenas. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Teresa Areola, the Director of Public Health and Social Services. We are here today because of Bill 1 that the Governor had sent down to the Legislature, and through phases, we are on Phase 2, which is the section for child care subsidy funding request, Section 3 of the bill. And Senators, we are here because we are in need of 7.6 million, not 11 million, as initially requested. So to carry us over to the end of the fiscal year, we were able to receive all our $22 million CCDF funding that is expected for this fiscal year. We received an allotment at the weekend of Liberation, which ironically was also the weekend right before the CCDF conference. And so today with me is the acting administrator for the Division of Public for Child Welfare, as well as Tricia Muffness, as well as Regina Muffness from the Child Care Welfare Division. The administrator of the Child CCDF funding program is Ms. Heidi Kanata, who is currently at the CCDF funding conference and making her way back. So we are here, Senators, asking that we continue to keep the eligibility criteria for children and families to stay as it is, and in doing so, we would require $7.6 million instead of 11.4 as initially requested, to pay for the remaining June invoices that are right now going through a review process to be paid out, only partial of June. So just for clarity, January through May was paid out. June was only partial because we didn't have all the clean invoices. And so partial June and all of July, August, and September is being requested. We are requesting 1.2 million for the remaining invoices of June, 1.208.943 for the remaining of June, and we are requesting 2.14025224 for the remaining fourth quarter of the fiscal year. And why is it anticipated estimate? It's because we do not have the invoices come in yet. So we're anticipating the high, and the high would be 2.4. It may be low, but the average has been about 2.1 million a month. And so I ask the senators to allow us to continue to keep the eligibility requirement. We're at a point, we had lots of money during the COVID times. We had several COVID funds. We had the CARES Act, the CURSA Act, ARPA stabilization, and this is not ARPA that we all talk about, ARPA from the governor's office. This is specific ARPA that came from CCDF.
Mr. Chair, excuse me.
Oh,
Can we get a copy of those handouts that she currently has, so we can follow along with her?
Yes, we'll take a 1-minute recess. Please provide that chart and any other
for the-
information for the senators.
grants?
Committee of the Whole is now called back to order. Mr. Speaker, you're recognized.
Do we have that information that was being requested?
Yes, it should be on everybody's desk, the spreadsheet that the director was going through. Yeah.
Not yet.
Okay, we'll take a 1-minute recess again. I guess the printers had a problem. The Committee of the Whole is back in order. Mr. Speaker, I just want to make one comment before we go back in. We will be sending you a copy of letters from Department of Public Health dated November 10, 2025 to Guam Child Care Development Fund providers from the Director, Teresa Areola, notification of delay in CCDF provider payments, as well as a December 1, 2025 letter, once again, Child Care Development Fund CCDF providers from Teresa Areola, the Director, and subject Child Care Development Block Grant reimbursements. This will tell the story, colleagues, of how old this problem is and what the child care centers have been enduring. And so that will also be on your desk so that you can ask questions about the history of this issue as well. Mr. Speaker, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Ariel, for this. But to get back to my initial question as to how we got here, what is traditionally the amounts that Guam receives for child care and development block grant funding?
Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry.
What is traditionally the amounts that Guam receives?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pre-COVID, it was anywhere between 10 and 13 million pre-COVID. Today, for the last at least couple of fiscal years, it's been 22 million. So there has been a bump from pre-COVID to today of receipt or of the formulary CCDF allocation, if you will, to Guam.
So we have received the 22 million that you just
Yes,
stated
Mr.
earlier?
Speaker. As of the Liberation Weekend, we received all of the expected 22 million for this fiscal year.
Okay. And,
As of a July Liberation Weekend.
okay. And so what is the amount necessary to continue this? Obviously, it's above 22
Yes.
million?
Mr. Speaker, the expected expenses for the fiscal year is 25, we need 7.6 million. And as I was stating in my earlier address, we need specifically 1.208943 for the remaining invoices that we're still processing for June. And then we have an estimate, high estimate, of 2.140252.24 times 3 months, which is July, August, and September. So my ask this morning is 7.629,699.72. And the reason why July, August, and September, Senators, are an estimate is because we have not received the invoices. The services have not been rendered, and so we're in July now, and child care providers will begin to send those invoices in early August.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
So is it safe to say then that your total child care and development block grant needs is about 27,600,000 and some thousand?
Maybe I should talk to you about the program itself.
Sure.
Okay, because the program itself is not just subsidies.
Sure.
So the program expense to execute this program is 29 million. Subsidy alone is 25 million. We've received 22. We've paid out 22 for subsidies. The remaining is the administrative cost to execute the program.
And what is that cost?
I'm sorry. Personnel and operation is 3,485,000. Plus what we anticipate at the end of September to pay out for subsidies to the providers at 25,683,026, or round up to 027, gives us a total program expense of 29,168,026, or 027 if you round up.
Okay. And I ask these numbers because obviously at the start of the year, with your $22 million, you were already anticipating a $7 million shortfall.
Either way, whether it's through the governor's bill, I would have asked for a supplemental request. And why hasn't it come earlier is because we are not getting the allotments like we normally do quarterly. We're getting them very differently in this new Defend the Spend Trump administration. So we're not getting our allotments quarterly to really see what we're getting. And yep, we need the local infusion to keep up with the current eligibility of families and children, which is about 2,700 kids in the program today.
And you know, Ms. Ariel, again, like I said, I think that just doing the preparation for the fiscal year, public health should have already anticipated that you were going to be short your funding.
Well, Senator,
because even if you were to get your quarterly, even at the rate that you initially had gotten your quarterlies, it's still amounted to only $22 million. When you have, and you could have already anticipated at least $7 million shortfall at the start of the fiscal year, right?
Mr. Speaker, several things happened during the fiscal
Okay.
year, if I can explain.
Okay.
One, the new administration was not giving our allotments regularly to really know what we're going to get, number one. We could have anticipated that we might get cut. We didn't know. The atmosphere in the CCDF, we could have gotten cut and we would have had to. We didn't know we were going to get 22 million. The way the allotments were coming in, very haphazardly compared to in the past where it was very quarterly. The second thing that happened is we did several rollbacks, and if I can explain what the rollbacks are. During COVID, we expanded the eligibility. Last year, we removed the eligibility for first responders that first was put in during the COVID years. That was one rollback. This January, we reinstilled what used to happen, which is a family co-share. Prior to January, correct me if I'm wrong, prior to January, we were, meaning the program was paying 100% of the subsidy. We are back to, we rolled back in January, meaning families are now paying a little bit of their share. So as we didn't see what was happening in the federal climate or the uncertainty whether we're going to get the whole thing, are we going to get it, when are we going to get it, we started making some preparations on slowly rolling back some things to get closer to pre-COVID. You may ask, why didn't you ask earlier? Well, in the past, we had several other grants that was allowable to augment the CCDF funding. CCF funding is just one funding, but we had other grants in the child welfare space that allowed us to supplement. So with MAWAR, right after COVID, and then rolling back first responders to not be eligible anymore, and then January rolling back or putting back into families the responsibility of paying a share. We just felt that's a lot of adjustments that needed to happen, and as you know, we also had two typhoons this year. So there was a lot of things that we had that we no longer had that was able to augment the CCDF fund. So here we are today, and we need $7.6 million to carry us through September to pay the invoices.
I appreciate this listing that you gave us, because are the fundings you were talking about that supplemented the program. You had the CARES Act, the CRSA 2021 Act, fund, the ARPA Stabilization Fund, and the ARPA Discretionary Supplemental Fund. Is that what you're talking about? Is this what you were talking about? Yeah?
Yes, sir.
And I noticed that the grant end dates were all 9/30/2025. What was the anticipation, or what were you expecting if the grant dates ended on 9/20/25?
Yes. You're correct, Mr. Speaker. These things ended, but there were other grants. And I'm going to ask Trish to explain the other lapses on the other things that we also used to augment, so we didn't have to roll back any further.
Trish?
Okay, hi. So Patricia Moffat, I'm the administrator for BOSA, but I'm acting as a chief for the division. So as we have our current fiscal year grant, we still had our previous grants that were still open, such as the FY23, FY24, FY25. So the lapses, we were given an extension for those through the with federal approval. So whatever extra monies we had, we were using it towards this subsidy to pay off. But now we've tapped all those accounts and there's nothing left. So now we only have our FY26 active grant that we can use, and that's why there's a shortfall.
When did you run out of that money?
Well, I want to say that we spent that by end of first quarter? By end of first quarter, I believe.
First quarter of this year.
How much was it?
I'm going to have to give you a breakdown later. I will have to get the cumulative of all the different grants that we were actually
give
using.
me a ballpark figure.
I'm going to be guessing, so I don't
Sure,
know.
sure. And give me the conservative estimate.
I want to say maybe there was at least $3 million for the cumulative grants. Yeah, to spend other people. Sir, I would have to get back to you. I would feel more comfortable in getting back to you on that in a few minutes.
And what I'm trying to get at is, okay, if you had additional funding there and then you need the additional funding here, how much was your program total?
29 million.
We're running at $29 million.
29 million.
29 mil. But that's what I'm getting. You had 22. You're asking for 7. How much did you have in that lapse funding that you were able to carry it through?
Can I get a few minutes and I'll get that back to you?
Okay.
1 minute recess.
Take recess, please.
So remember when I asked you all
Committee of the Whole is back in order. Mr. Speaker, I believe they have their answer for you.
Okay, you have the answer?
Hi, Speaker. So I want to be clear, and I stand corrected. Our lapses from the FY23 and our FY23 funds was an estimate of $2 million, which we actually did not spend directly on subsidy. It went toward our other obligations and operations. So I stand corrected on that. It did not pay towards FY26 subsidy.
So you didn't use any of that money for,
Correct. It did not go to subsidy.
okay. When you were, as with any program, at the start of the program, you receive an award letter with an award amount. What was that amount that you received from Child Care Development Grant Block funding?
Mr. Speaker, thank you. We traditionally, as we know, grants, we get NOAs and they kind of post what we get in total, right, for the fiscal year. CCDF is not that way. They give us NOAs by quarter or when they're releasing it. So we have very little, how do I say? It's very difficult to plan ahead when the first NOA is not the total NOA for the entire year. It's just for the quarter. Correct? Correct, per quarter. And for example, okay, this one. Our first quarter, which starts in October, we only got the NOA November 20th. And we received $12 million. But the NOA doesn't say for October to September. It just says this is for this allotment. So it's very, it's very difficult for us to plan ahead. We always look, we know in the program that the CCDF funding is based on prior year, how many kids are in the system. So we hope, and we were praying, that the 12 million wasn't the only thing coming, because we knew the previous year was 22 million. So it's a very different NOA, the way the federal allotments are being released during this administration. They're only giving us NOA based on the allotment release. And so, as an example, we can't even pay out, like I mentioned, we got the first NOA of 12 million in November 20th. That's a whole month and 20 days after the fiscal year started. So, as an example, if that's the case and we got our first infusion of cash in November, the October services were delayed in November for payment because we didn't have the money. We were still waiting, even though rigorous follow-ups. And I want to say, you know, for our counterparts in the feds, there has been a lot of turnaround, and it is so difficult to get a hold of somebody in the CCDF federal side. And so I don't want to blame that, but I really feel like in my discussions with Heidi, who's the administrator of this program, who's not off island, and now Trish is here, I just feel like they too don't quite know what's happening with the funding. And so they're very, very reserved in telling us anything. Are we getting more? Are we going to expect the 22 million that we got last year? Nobody wants to give us, they don't want to get in trouble, so they don't want to promise anything. And then that's after months, or often, not months, maybe weeks of follow-up and trying to get a hold of somebody to respond. So just a little bit of what the concerns we have too. We're not getting the feedback that we traditionally get from the federal side, from our people.
So you got 12 million in November.
Pardon?
You got 12 million in November?
We got 12 million in
When's the
November.
next time you got payment?
Yes, and all that went to subsidy payments.
So when's the next time you got payment?
I'm sorry?
When was the next time you got your payments?
After November, we got it in the third quarter, April 23rd.
How much did you get there?
2.7. See the sporadic? It's normally a very, quarterly 2.7.
And then after that?
July 18th, this is the Liberation Weekend, 2.6. Now, Senator, I should say that's discretionary. There's also mandatory. We got it at the same time, which adds up to 4.6 million. If you add the 17 and the 4.6, that equates to the 22 that we feel and are told it's
hang
all
on.
we're going to get.
You got 12 million in November, 2.7 in April.
Okay, I'm sorry, Senator. Let me just add it up. The CCDF funding is 2 buckets, discretionary and mandatory. In November, we got 12.2 for discretionary bucket and 12.2 for the discretionary. The discretionary, you should know, is the larger bucket of money. In April, we received 2.7, and in July 18, we were 2.6. In the mandatory bucket, we received in October 1.6, in January 1.6, April 695,000, and July 695,000. If you add all that up, 17 total for discretionary and 4.6 for mandatory, that brings you to 22, 810,381. Correct? Please keep me on. We
Okay.
paid, yeah. Thank you, Speaker.
Okay, no. So with all this, obviously, you said that there were delays in being able to make the payments because you just didn't have the funding. Were there any delays in anybody's paycheck? Within public health?
No, nobody got delayed. There is a...
How were you able to certify funds if you didn't have any funds?
So, do you want to talk about he's asking about people who are paid out of CCDF funding.
Certifying funds for our paychecks.
Yeah, he's asking for paycheck. So, as I mentioned, 29 million is the total program. 4 million of that is operations and salaries, or I'm sorry, 3.4 million of that is operational and salaries. I should say that CCDF funding has spending percentage requirements. 90% of all CCDF funding must go to subsidies. 5% should go to administration, and 5% again go to training or direct service. So even within that fund, there are limits to how much can go to admin, can go to direct training, and can go to subsidies.
So again,
And yes, to your question, to date, there has not been a delay in payments to staff who is running this program.
So the staff didn't have to wait a month to get paid because, again, it goes back to if your operations right now running you a little over $22 million, how do you plan out and how do you certify funds for the next month when you don't even have the funds? you're not even sure that the funds are going to be available. You just finished saying that. There's no continuity, there's no regularity to be able to plan properly.
Mr. Speaker, we earmarked that as required during the breakdown of the CCDF funding requirement.
Can you
But
imagine
I know what
it
you're
sounds,
getting at.
Yeah, I know. I'm just kidding. Can you imagine what it sounds like to the child care providers? Okay?
Yes, but I think the child care providers, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, the program only allocates so many for subsidies.
Yeah,
so
but
are you saying that I should have held back?
I'm sorry, Therese, but when you look at what your subsidies are and the dates that you're getting your subsidies, and the monies you're getting, and then you look at the breakdown as to how you're supposed to divvy up the money, I don't see how you were able to make payroll just for public health itself, much less for the child care providers. If 90% is supposed to go to subsidies and only 5% to the salaries.
But Senator, not, excuse me. Yes, I'm sorry.
I'm just trying to understand the math here. And
well, the only thing I can tell you is that we earmarked it according to the program.
okay.
And that's all I can say. We earmarked it according to the program.
Okay, and
And even if I wanted to move the 5% and the other 5%
Okay.
over to subsidies, I couldn't, because that's not what the program dictated, Senator.
Okay, I'm going to refer to, there were letters that were passed out to us, and I'm going to refer, hang on. To a letter dated December 1st, 2025. That's the second letter that's there. You got it?
Yes, there's November, December, April 1st.
Okay, so I'm going to refer to the December 1st on why delays occurred. It said, can you read what it says? This is your letter, right? This year, several factors contributed to slower processing times, including the upgrading of the Government of Guam lighting agencies to the new Guam Financial Management System,
Yes.
funding allotments and systems adjustments following the conclusion of federal government shutdown. You says this year several factors contribute to slower processing time, including what are some of the other slower processing times that you referred to?
So there is a new system, and
Right.
Mr. Byrne is here, and he can talk about the new system. But we, prior to the new system coming in, we were processing payments one way, and now we had to shift and process payment in batches. That's all I referred to. That's all I meant, that we were batching separately. We were processing payments different because of the new DOA system. That is required. That was asked of us.
Okay.
So we had to adjust.
So you were just talking here about the processing times. This is the
The
assumption
process,
that
the way we process payments, Speaker.
okay. So this is just the assumption that the process is just about the process. It had nothing to do with the money.
No, correct. It's just a process. I'm talking about process in this letter.
Mr. Byrne, can we speak a little bit to the processing and what does it take?
Yes, thank you. And I have to say I wasn't aware of that particular letter. As you know, Speaker, the new financial management system was introduced in 2024. for some payments, including public health payments, they come out of, their system is on the old legacy system. So they produce a report that we import into the new system. And we do it electronically, so we get a report out of the old system. We have a little bit of mechanics that we have to do ourselves, but it usually takes about a day to do that. And after that, the new system produces a report which we review. Usually takes a couple of days to review that for errors and things that we see need to be corrected. So all in all, it takes about 3 to 4 days to process these claims.
So it takes about 3 to 4 days.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Therese?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. And we needed to learn that new process, so it took a while for us to go from how it was before, submitting however the staff used to submit it, versus batching it. And so we had to, on our end, we need to learn that system. And so it took a while. And we had to redo all the batching in the way that DOA needed it to be batched. And so we did that. And then when we did that, we got caught up. And as of today, everything is paid up until up to June partial.
Okay.
Up to June partial. Only partial June.
Okay. I only have a couple of minutes, so I'm going to go back to, you know, what you anticipate your allocations are supposed to be. You initially presented that this program, pre-COVID, ran up to about $13 million a year. Now
And then it was expanded.
Then this was expanded to now
Then
it's
it was
close to $30 million
expanded
a year.
to allow more families and kids. At that 13 million, I was just told that that equated to about 300, 400 kids.
Okay.
Okay? So COVID happened, lots of dollars came in that allowed us to help the providers.
Sure.
We expanded the eligibility. Now we're at 2,700 children, individual children's,
Okay.
being recognized, being helped. So 2,700 kids are being helped today through the expanded eligibility. We're trying to roll back, and we did. We removed last year first responders. And then this year, we put back in what used to be, but didn't happen during the COVID years, the parent co-share. And during the COVID years, with all the money, if a child provider costs $700, I'm sorry, right? If a child provider's fees or tuition was $1,000, we paid the whole $1,000. Where in the past, maybe the cap was $700 and the parents would have to pay the $300. That's pre-COVID. So we instilled in January of this year back the pay, the parents paying a share. So we're trying to roll back slowly, removing certain groups. Now we rolled back and we're putting back to pre-COVID the family match or the parent match, as well as, what was the other thing? The co-share and the max payment is brought back in to in January. So we're at a point of the program, Mr. Speaker, that the state, or in this case, our territory of Guam, would need to supplement the program if we want to keep the 2,700 kids in place. if there is no local infusion, then I would be forced to collapse it, collapse the eligibility, and only use federal dollars at 22 million, which would collapse the number of kids eligible. So I'm asking for the 7.6 to keep things where they're at. Keep the 2,700 kids able to continue the program.
You know, and I go back to, first off, this was nowhere presented in the executive budget request. Nowhere. It was nowhere presented, not just in this executive budget request, but in the previous year budget request.
Because in the previous year, we were able to use different kind of fundings to help.
You know, I think that it was, thanks, Ms. Ariola, but your statement here basically says it expired in this September of last year.
Either way, I would have asked to come back to this body to ask for help.
July 28th. Okay, and I appreciate that you provided us the breakdown here, but all of the breakdown here recognizes that this administration knew that this is going to be a shortfall, but didn't present it to us until very recently. I'm not going to blame you because you came.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, again, with all the uncertainties of the federal allotments, not knowing whether we're going to get the 22 million, with the allotments not being consistent like they are, it's very hard to plan. And either way, whether it's this bill, I would have asked, maybe through my oversight chair, to please look at a supplemental funding. So whether it's this bill or another bill, I would have come. Because I don't feel like doing any more rolling after 2 typhoons, after already impacting the families and the families with the copay this January. I mean, there's just so much we can keep putting back. Now, if the 7.6 million is, I mean, you know, is not provided but from local match. We are not in a very unique situation. The entire country is dealing with this in CCDF.
Okay. Well, you know,
and they have state money.
We're just talking about getting through to this fiscal year, right?
Right, correct.
Okay. It's
correct,
just until
Mr. Speaker.
September. What happens in October? What happens when the next fiscal year happens? Again, Ms. Ariola, I'm telling you, it was nowhere presented in the executive budget. It was not presented.
And again, Mr. Speaker, I don't know. There's only one pot of money that might come back, and I failed to tell you. In the past, and this is the past, CCDF nationwide will collect all the balances, put it in a pot, and it's called redistribution. Last year, we got about 600,000. I don't know if we're going to get it. We pray we might get a distribution. I'm not sure. There's a lot of unsure what we're going to get from the CCDF.
And I think
that's all I'm saying.
We have to plan for that uncertainty, and that's what I'm getting at, okay?
So,
again, I understand your plight, okay?
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I understand your plight.
Yeah, I know.
I don't appreciate that you're put in the position or from the federal side on that plight. I understand that. But at the same token, as we try to close out this fiscal year with this supplemental funding, it has been not presented to us for consideration for the next fiscal year. Okay? And that's what I'm getting at. Okay? That's what I'm getting at. Is because it's probably going to have to be dealt with. The other thing, too, that I'm very concerned about is how do we properly plan, recognizing our own statutes say you cannot certify any payment or any, okay, unless you have the funding available. And I can't see how you were able to
And
accomplish that.
and that's why, Mr. Speaker, we were not able to pay subsidies.
But you were able to pay paychecks.
But that is a percentage that's allocated and able to buy the fund program itself. So,
Yes, so-
I know what you're saying, but at the same time, the fund, unlike what people might think, is not all subsidies.
I know, but it's broken down into, right?
Correct.
Right? Okay.
And so there was an allocation, and that allocation is based on CCDF program guidelines itself. So yes, it sounds like I put aside money for the staff, but it's because that's what was required for me to do, put
Okay.
aside that money for the staff. Now, with regards to planning for FY27, if we don't know what CCDF is doing, then unfortunately I'm going to ask the legislature to maybe ask for a reverse. Maybe the local fund has to you need to give me all local fund, and then when I know what I get, I pay it back to you for FY27. I mean, that's the only thing I don't know how else to plan for an uncertainty fund that I don't know about. So if local funds will be fronted, and then as we get some NOAs, hopefully before November, then I can pay you back.
And to the point that
Pay
I
you
need
back.
to provide in section B of the of the section.
Yes.
Okay, that this funding,
Correct.
once received, and now you're asking for 7.6,
It's less, right.
Okay.
7.6.
is going to be expended, but then it's going to reimburse the general fund or credit back to the general fund.
But unfortunately today, unfortunately, Speaker, we've received everything. We've received all 22 million, with the exception, once again, of what is called redistributed CCDF funding that we, again, have no clue what we're getting and
So
hope
on
we
top
get.
of what you received,
On top of the 22 million,
Right.
we may, very big may, get what we previously got called redistributed CCDF funding.
Okay.
But we
no,
don't
that's what I'm
know.
getting at. So this section B doesn't apply to the 7.6 now that you're asking for? Because
Correct,
initially
the
in the bill it
7
says,
because we've received everything today.
Okay.
We were told that we received
so
everything.
you received everything. So
As
that's
of
why
today-
it's now 7.6.
As of today, we received all $22 million of CCDF funding that we are told is all Guam is going to get.
Okay.
Our expenses are higher than that, and thus the ask of 7.6 million.
So
and
had you
change.
not gotten it, you would have come in here and asked for 11.4 plus 7.6. That's what you're saying.
Correct. I am asking for 7.6, not 11, that will cover the balance of June invoices, July, August, and September at a budgeted high amount of 2.1.
Did you discuss that with the person who wrote this bill? Because, again, the body is made to understand 11.4 gets reimbursed.
But
my time is up.
Oh. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Gumatauta.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And let me just kind of go backwards a bit, Therese. So the interim final rule, or the final rule for the CCDF, was published on May 1st, 2024. It was effective April 30, 2024. You joined Public Health in June of 2024. When you joined, and you were probably briefed on the issues of this, because this is kind of where this goes back to. Did you brief the chair of health at that time that there was going to be issues with the CCDF with all of the new rules that we're kind of seeing resemblance of it today? Did you ever get a chance to do that with a former health chair?
No, Senator.
Because there was a
And-
lot of uncertainty that you mentioned, and it's 2026. I mean, I get all the COVID stuff. I'm not trying to go and relitigate COVID and the like, but I just think that we're here now and we're trying to help. I appreciate the history lesson, but for me, I'm trying to focus on today. And
Thank you, Senator.
if you didn't brief before, it took us 2 years to get here. So with that said, for the record, how many child care centers are currently licensed to do business on Guam?
I can give that to you. We have a total of 160 child care providers. Licensed providers is 71. School-age providers are 24, and relative providers are 65, meaning we're paying grandma or auntie to pay, to take care of the kids. They, of course, I just want to be clear, because there seems to be a little bit of confusion with some people. Relative providing does not have the same standard of licensing as the centers.
Okay, give me the relative again. What's that number?
65, a total of 160. That equates to 2,730 children across them.
Hold on one second. So your own site is showing something, your provider listing is only showing 90 active entries on you guys from the public record. Can you help us understand? I'm hoping you can provide to the committee the total number, because it's different than what's totally
It's
published today.
160.
No, I'm saying that your public record that you're saying here on the record, I get it, but your registry doesn't match.
Okay, 71 plus 24.
No, Therese, I'm saying that the registry that
It's reflective of the license, Senator.
Your public-facing way that we can look at it
Yes.
is showing only 90.
As licensed, correct?
Right, but
Okay.
it's way different than what you just testified on.
Because relative is not considered license.
Okay, and now, how many children, again, are served by these
160.
centers?
Of the 160 providers, some licensed, some not licensed, because relative care is not licensed.
No, on the licensed ones.
Oh, the breakdown for only the licensed?
Only the licensed.
Okay, we're going to need to get that to you, Senator, please. I have to.
We'll take a 1-minute recess.
Okay.
Committee of the Whole is back in order. Senator Sean, you have the floor. Senator Gumatalto.
You have an answer?
Okay, Senator, in terms of children in licensed childcare settings, we're looking at 2,660, and in relative, 70.
You know why I started with this records integrity question, as I know that you do put a lot of records integrity questions onto these child care centers. So as you ask of them, I think they're also hoping that you can, when you come here, you're able to do the same. So I wanted to just say that, Mr. Chair, on the record. Now, how many of these children, or how many children are covered under the grant today, under the CCDF? How many children are covered?
Everyone, the 2,760 kids.
So, I'm sorry, 2,700.
I'm sorry, 2,730, the total, which also includes relative.
Okay. So how many children in these centers that you just mentioned are not covered or eligible for the grant?
None. The total 2,730 kids that I mentioned are all CCDF subsidized children.
So you're saying that
2,000.
so every child is covered?
Every
There's not a
child is
single kid
covered.
whose eligibility is not covered under this?
Oh,
If I can add, so no, there are other children in daycares that are not under subsidy. Okay, so parents have to come into childcare to apply for the subsidy.
Okay, how many of these children are in the centers that are not covered or eligible for the grant?
Sorry, that's something I don't track, and because we're looking at who comes into childcare to apply. So, I would have to look
Senator,
at all.
are you asking like a child care provider how many kids are not subsidized by CCDF?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we wouldn't know that. The provider, because the provider applies to be a CCDF funded provider, and we just take care of the kids that are covered under CCDF. We don't manage their other business side.
Right, but
their
I mean,
house.
it goes back to with the program, we have to track who aren't covered, so you know you're not paying for costs that are going beyond what would be these kids. So if they're getting,
Right.
if they're not funded, but they're still being served, I'm just trying to understand the delta.
So the child care center is a business, and they are open to different clients, and our kids who are CCDF kids they will provide an invoice to us, and we'll pay for those kids. And then how they settle other parents is, I guess, how they run their business. They invoice their parents who are not with us or who didn't apply to be a CCDF subsidized child.
So when the federal government, through the Bureau of Child Care Services, advised the government of Guam of the current state of child care subsidies, how many days later did you advise these centers of the program changes?
I don't have the number of days. The question is very specific, how many days later. All I know, what I can share, Senator Sean Gumatalto, is that November and December, as the chairman shared with the body, letters came to me. April 1st, I sent another email to all providers regarding the delay. April 8th, I did a press release regarding the concern of the Trump administration uncertainty of child care funds. And on June 25th, another email to all providers regarding the delay.
Yeah, and
so I don't know.
So when did you get notice of the change? And that's where I'm headed at.
Yeah.
Is the time when you were told that you're going to have changes, and how long did you? What was the gap in time?
I didn't get, from what I recall, I didn't get director. There's changes coming down. What we were doing, we were tracking the discussion in the Senate, and that's why if you look at the letter that the chairman shared, dated December 1st, it was just the uncertainty of the climate of Medicaid and child care funding.
No, that's what I mean. That's what I'm trying to get at. If we keep saying uncertainty, but you were certain because you had a date when someone said to you that these program changes are coming. I'm just trying to understand the time frame that it took for public health to advise centers of the change. I mean, I get the whole uncertainty part. I'm just trying to understand.
I don't have that date.
Okay.
Thank you, Senator.
And I think because in the federal statute, it does require that the program, as you are administering it, they should be timely manner. They should be reasonable manner to notice. That's all. I'm just trying to, because these folks are trying to understand how to do their business. They really rely on you to tell them when they hear of it. And if you waited 1 day, 2 days,
right. I don't,
4 months, I mean, that's what I'm trying to help understand.
And I don't have that exact day, but I know that, as I mentioned, I try to tell them as much as I could when I know. And again, November, December, twice in April, and 1 in June. So that's what I've shared.
And so, Director, do you have confirmation that the centers advised the parents and the families using services under this program of the respective changes back to the standard subsidy? Now, going back to the original rule, and the first question was about the rule. There was a rule change, and if you didn't, why or why not?
I'm going to. The question is, if I am aware, if the centers inform the parents, correct?
Yes, that is correct. Do you have any confirmation?
But any changes to the program, like for example, a parent having to pay a share, we would have informed the parent as well, because the parent is the client of ours. We have two stakeholders, the parents and the providers. So any change, for example, the match that we tried to go back to, where we're no longer subsidizing 100%, we are now in January went back to having parents putting in a share. We would have shared that with the parents directly as well.
Right, so do you have any log of that, or do you have any?
January.
No. So did all of these 71 licensed care centers, did you track whether or not that they received it at all?
I'm going to pass it on to the program for those details. Do you have logs that they received it, they emailed it, they accepted it, they all that?
So what I can confidently say is that when like a parent comes in and questions, we do provide them information when they visit us, when they do renewals. And yes, we do share information with the parents that I don't have a log right with me. I would have to ask my staff, sorry.
Again.
But I do know that we do
I was going
inform
back
them.
to my records integrity question to kind of get back to this. Why I ask is when you were aware, and then you would have told them, so you were tracking making sure that these centers were publicly notifying parents? That's all. I just want to understand that.
Yes, so we do inform the parents and the centers of changes.
And you have some level of documentation to that?
I can definitely have the staff pull it up.
You're not aware if you do that as part of
sorry,
your,
like
I know
I
that's
said
not
earlier,
your, I know that's not your role, but as part of the process, are you guys aware
Correct.
if that's something you guys track?
There should be a role, because we not only send it out on the provider portal, which every provider that signs up to be a CCDF funding is part of that portal. So I'm sure we can figure out when the email was sent in the portal, and we can share that with you. I'm
Right.
sure there's a tracking in the email or however the portal was sent that we can give you a date and a time.
Right, and as we're asking for $7.6 million, how do I track it against it, making sure it gets to them? I want to make sure that, at least in your process, if you don't, that's fine, but at least I want to just at least ask the question.
So the 7.6 million, Senator, it would be against invoices that the centers provide us.
Right, and that's what I'm getting at.
Right.
If they were told and they were telling others, then there's some kind of chain. We at least understand there was a communication, because I think that's been at least what I gathered recently, that there's just not that kind of engagement. But we can debate that all day. Can I ask child care providers under CCDF must complete the mandatory pre-service orientation requirement to avoid discontinued subsidy payments or revocation of CCDF certification. What was the deadline date for that under the new rule? I know there was 2 major rule changes over the last 2 years.
I am not aware of the deadline, but I do know that all child care providers do have to go through that orientation for health and safety.
So, do you know if it was completed, or what is the percentage of those licensed to do business on Guam in child care have completed that respective process?
I'm sure. Can you repeat the question one more time so we can get the answers?
Yes,
for you?
sure. So, child care providers under the CCDF, they must complete the mandatory pre-service orientation requirement to avoid discontinued subsidy payments or revoking of CCDF certification. So what was the deadline date, as I was asking for this under the rule? And if it has been completed or not.
So I'm getting information from my staff. So
Sure.
upon, so all providers have to complete that, and they have up to 90 days from the date of hire in order to complete this. And it's a one-time completion.
Okay, so it was one time, and there's no deadline. It's only 90 days after they've applied to the grant.
Correct. 90 days after hire.
And then when it's completed, what's the percentage of the license of those licensed to do business on Guam have in fact completed this process and you've recorded at Public Health?
I do not have the percentage, but basically if they do not meet the requirement, then that staff member may not be at that center.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, why I asked that, that's a training requirement for the grant. So if they don't meet that requirement, they're not going to get any support. And if they're not tracking that, for the record, I must note that they're not tracking, then we're here for what reason? And I ask that very bluntly, only because I believe that if we're asking for child care centers to comply, and our own public health is not, taking that extra step to ensure compliance, that hold on a second, let me finish, is that I just want to be able to know that if they are, great, but is it published somewhere or has it been documented so that we who are trying to make a decision on any future subsidy to backstop the grant is done effectively, Mr. Chair. Teresa, do you want to add or you're okay? Okay, that's fine. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. That's my only questions for this particular round.
Senator Barnett, you're recognized.
Mr. Chair, and mananasi dus to the people of Guam watching along on our YouTube channel. Well, a very interesting line of questioning from the retiring speaker who I'm sure the people of Guam know also serves as the Republican Party chair. So I think it's very interesting that this is kind of like the party line, from President Trump. All of these cuts on critical public health and social services. And I think that's kind of why you're seeing this tone from some of the members of the majority, kind of like, how dare you come here to the People's House and ask for this funding to take care of these 2,700 kids. And I think we're on this side quest largely because, as you know, Director, the priority for this body was to dish out another 0.5% reduction in the BPT, and that's why we're all fighting over these limited resources that were created by giving the biggest of the big businesses another $40 million rollback. And I spoke with the child care providers. They're very cognizant of the inconsistency that's coming from the federal government. I mean, you just look at other areas, ceasefire, no ceasefire. I mean, things just change so rapidly. And so I'd asked you prior to the hearing, because one of the concerns we did receive was that a lot of this uncertainty wasn't communicated to the child care providers or the recipients of the block grants. So I was very grateful, I guess, to receive the numerous letters that you've been sending out. But I would just say, you know, if the child care providers and the parents are sharing with the senators that there's a communication problem, maybe we just need to kind of figure out how to get this information out, you know, in a better way, you know, just respectfully and all due fairness. So I just have a few questions. I support it. I mean, the decision for me is very simple. This is a critical area that's being shortchanged, undercut by the federal government. So and this is a conversation we're having because we are giving a full percent BBT reduction, erasing $80 million in revenues off the table. We're trying to scramble to fund locally a lot of these programs that are being left out in the cold from the federal government. And I think these are important programs. And the conversation about using local dollars to support them is absolutely a big deal. And that's kind of the big conversation we're having here. And you're not the only one who's you know, coming to the people's house. As you know, the supplemental budget bill shortchanged so many critical areas from special education, autism, suicide response, drug treatment, you know, services for those suffering from severe mental and emotional disorders. And so it's just very frustrating that we're in this situation now where, because of the federal rollbacks, and you know, this is something that's been reported very, very widely, the freeze on these child care funds and how it's affected so many different, I mean, we got the emails here from not just the employees at the child care centers, but the parents as well, you know, asking for action on this. And so I guess my first question is, we were getting a bunch of emails, and then you guys came out with a press release about the $5 million that was given out to the child care centers. So what impact did that have, and how does that factor into the current ask in the bill?
Thank you, Senator Barnett, for that. When I shared with the governor that we were having payment problems for April, May, and June, I said we need to make it whole. She spoke, of course. She pledged that we'll figure out how to get this funded so that at least the invoices that are at hand can be paid up. I said we can deal with July, August, and September at a supplemental ask, which is the reason why I'm here. But maybe I can ask Director Byrne, because at the direction of the governor, he paid up so that April and May and partially June, I just want to keep saying partially, because not all the invoices were clean in the sense that it needed to be vetted. And so whatever April, May, and June clean invoices that could be paid, we batched them and we sent it to DOA. The governor gave direction to Director Byrne, and he was able to pay that out, and that's why child care were able to get April, May, and partially June. We're at a point now where, and Director Byrne, do you want to mention, you want to speak on that payment, on that?
Yeah, Director Byrne, if you could, because I remember we had you in here on the, I want to say it was the budget bill. You've been in here a lot. Thank you. Sir. But there was a lot of muddy water, confusion about, you know, the issuing of the press release and when the funds were actually delivered. So if you could just clarify that.
Yes, when the governor issued the press release, Senator, I think she mentioned $5 million, which was an assessment at the time. The amount we paid out for April, May, and partial June, as the director said, was about just over $3.2 million.
Okay, so Director Arriola, just for the benefit of the people of Guam watching, because there's so many numbers being thrown around here, I had a question from a constituent, and maybe you could add a little clarity. So if you received the $22 million, and that's great news, why do you still need the $7 million?
Because 22 million is not enough to currently fund 2,730 children and providers. payments. We are in need of the remaining balance of June, which is 1.208943, and again, July, August, September, each month, we're estimating at 2.1 million, which is a high. When you add that up, that's 7.6. That's what we need to pay out child care providers. To date, because it's July, they're still working July. We won't get the July invoices until August. So really, what I need today is, specifically today, is 1.2 to pay out the June invoices that are already in and being processed. And then we're going to need July, August, and September to pay that out right at when the invoices start coming in. So again, 7.6 million to currently serve 2,730 children. If there isn't, as I mentioned earlier, Senator, I think to maybe the previous speaker, we are, as you mentioned, it's been aired nationally, all this reduction or collapsing or rethinking of priorities of Medicaid or of SNAP and child care. So it's not news. It's not new to anybody. It's not new to the program. But unfortunately, the way the federal side is administering the program is so different, like unbelievably different.
Yeah, respectfully, Director Ariola, we've heard this same information from, the Guam Department of Education people, as you know, with the dismantling of USDOE, and, I'm not even sure what they're trying to do with special education. I know it's not being supported, though. So this is a very consistent narrative that we have from the local agencies relative to, them being able to communicate with the federal counterparts. We hear things like they talked to someone in a federal program yesterday, pues GUÐ, they're no longer with the program and they don't know who to call. So I understand all of those things, and that's why I think it's important for us to invest. I think it's a worthy investment. So I got to ask, and I wasn't sure if you were going there already, if you don't get the 7.6 million, how many kids are going to be left out in the cold?
2,730, because we have to pay their bill every month. Every month, 2,730 kids will not, or providers that provide care for these children, will not be able, we won't be paid. And so what does that mean? That means if I don't get a local appropriation, which many states and territories, Guam, we've been accustomed to just doing all and never putting into federal, we are at that point in time where we need to infuse federal if we want to keep 2,730 kids still copied. Still eligible.
We don't have the budgets that, the Californias or the Texases have. So that's why, we're here having this conversation. But it's very critical to remember that with the BPT rollback, minusing, significant amounts of revenues that could be used to, move local funding to these important areas. So I guess next fiscal year, are you going to need the $7 million every year? So what are we looking at just moving forward?
Moving forward, clearly, if I'm going to assume, very big assumptions, if we get the 22 million that we got this year, next year, and we don't know because the NOA is not here, and even the NOA is not a full NOA, notice of award for the entire year, it's only NOAs by quarter. If we don't get the 22 million, then we need to collapse the eligibility. And when we collapse the eligibility, that means less, but I don't know what to collapse it to. I don't know how much the feds are going to give me, and I'm hoping that the local legislature will give me some money. But I don't know what to collapse it to until I know how much money I'm getting from the federal, our local appropriation, or a combination of both.
Could you also maybe expand a little bit? You had said earlier that some of the things you've had to do is eliminate eligible classes of individuals, and you have been forced to eliminate first responders from this program. And then you've also stated here on the record that because of these Trump rollbacks, delays in funding, you've also had to institute the family share, which means our working families are paying out of pocket, to supplement this program that, I mean, in reality, we should be paying for if we really support our working families in here.
Thank you, Senator. Yes. Last year, we gave notice that the expanded eligibility population of first responders were going to be rolled back and no longer qualified. That was in 2025. This year, 2026, we put back in the pre-COVID program process, which means during COVID, we paid 100%, meaning if the child's daycare charges $1,000, we paid for that $1,000. And that's okay because we had a lot of money then, right? We had a lot of COVID, CARES Act, all kinds of different monies. And that's okay because we want to push it out to people. But those have expired. And so we had to instill in January. And I know some people might say, well, why didn't you do it earlier, Therese? Well, we also had Mawar after COVID that impacted families. And this year, we had 2 typhoons. And God willing, I hope that's it.
And I appreciate, that you extended it as long as you could, because clearly our working families, to include the families of the first responders, I mean, how much do we talk about honoring our first responders in here? So I'm trying to look for a true number. So we give you the $7.6 million. Does that mean that first responders would remain ineligible? Or?
No, Senator. The first responders rollback happened last year. So there's no first responder children in the 2,730
Yeah,
kids.
so I'm wondering, what is the cost? What was the cost of eliminating the first responders? And do we now consider, if we're going to fund with local funding, adding them back in? And is that a possibility?
I would have to give you the numbers, but currently the 2,730 kids are not from first responder families.
Yeah, I get it. So how many kids do you know were with the first responder
We can
families?
find out.
Okay. And then the subsequent dollar amount, because again, we want to, I support giving the money, but we want to make sure that when we give you the money, it's a worthy investment, and we include the people who have had to be cut out of this program because of, funding shortfalls.
Thank you, Senator. Trish can share the numbers. She has it.
Okay. So let me explain about the first responders eligibility first. So during COVID, we had the expanded eligibility criteria. So that means that even if the first responder was over that income bracket, we still approved them because they were confirmed as a first responder. So in removing that, it means that people now have to be eligible based on the eligibility criteria, the income thresholds. So as a first responder, they no longer were eligible because of the income brackets. So what happened was when we rolled it back, as of in July, that means there were a total of 405 kids that were affected, so that as of today are no longer under the program. That's 405 kids under the first responders.
Right, and I understand, with the compensation of the first responders, they might be in a little bit of a better position to, pay for the child care services, but is this a decision that we're able to reverse locally For example, if we were to determine how much funding it costs for these first responders and give you the, the appropriation on top of the 7.6, would you be able to then continue with the expanded eligibility and also eliminate the family share cost?
In terms of the family share cost, that was under the final rule that we implemented, so we cannot change that. In terms of eligibility for first responders, if we keep the eligibility criteria wide and we have the waiver upon that, in addition to the expanded eligibility, we may be able to cover it. I would have to find a number for how much that's going to cost, but basically we're still going to only pay the cap, which is, like the director has been repeating, that if there's a $25 co-share and if the cap is $700 for an infant, and the daycare charges $1,000, that $300 does come out of the parent's pocket. So that is under the final rule that we implement. So those criteria still apply.
Okay. So you had also said that in order to cover some of the funding delays with the child care block grants, you utilize funds from other grants that you were able to use. So what's the status on those funds that you kind of moved around? Are these funds that need to be replenished, or are we looking at other shortfalls and other programs because you kind of move things around to accommodate the federal government delays?
Okay. So earlier I corrected myself that those lapses from the previous federal grants did pay already obligations from previous fiscal years, like FY25. It did not go into subsidies. So these are not grants that are not going to be replenished. These are the actual discretionary grants that have already ended. So we're only living off now our discretionary and mandatory of fiscal year 26. Those are the only two grants we have.
What about the concern from the child care providers that the new rates are unsustainable for them?
They might be talking about having to do the cost share again, I think, and
that's something from the Trump side of things, correct?
Well,
with the final rule.
Yes. I'm sure the families that have aired to senators that they can't afford even the share is legitimate. I'm sure it's real. I don't know what to say unless our local appropriation from the legislature makes up for it, similar to how states in the states throw in state dollars. We would not be able to cover 100%. I mean, at this point, we're not able to cover the cost share portion. So we won't be able to cover the 100% unless we get more than 7.6 million.
How much more, Nay?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure that out.
Okay.
I think your question, Senator, is how much more if we get back to 100% payment? He wants to know how much is it going to cost.
But I only ask because, as you said yourself, you're probably going to be back in here. So I am of the opinion that we take care of as many people who avail of this program because it serves a very critical population. I mean, not only our working families, but, our child care providers who obviously are providing care that is essential to our working families being able to go out and, do things like work and pay taxes and generate favorable economic conditions. So, yeah, I would just like the real number so that we can discuss that moving forward. And, I'd like to see you in here, but, if we just take care of everybody, maybe you don't have to come in on October 2nd.
Thank you, Senator. Let me work the numbers. What is it going to cost to be at 100% and not having parents pay the share? And I'll get back to you. As well as what is it going to cost to add in first responders as well? I think that's your ask, right?
Yeah.
Let me work on that. Thank you.
Also, childcare providers and parents as well have talked about delays when we get the funding to the funding actually getting out to them. So I guess the concerns that were shared with me is about the staffing. I mean, how's your staffing in terms of you get this $22 million, how quickly can you get it back out to the parents and providers? And is there a need there as well?
Well, we do have, if I'm not mistaken, we do have 38 staff working this program. We need staff to work the program, but the staffing is very limited, again, because the program itself only limits so much percentage. Yeah, 38 people working the program. I think your question is how quickly can we move on it? Right now, we have June invoices being processed.
Dispensa, let me just reframe my question.
Oh.
So all the child care providers here, they heard the news you got the $22 million. So obviously the next question is how soon will that get to them in the form of checks or however you guys do it for the parents and the providers?
Everything that could be paid out is paid out already. The only invoices that we're holding off on is June and the incoming July, August, September.
Okay. And that's because your staff has been working to process these invoices and get them out?
Yes. You know, there's the staff has to ensure that it's proper, and then we need the money. And that's why I'm here.
And that's why they're getting their paycheck, right?
That's why we're here.
Yeah, I don't know what that was trying to pit the program workers against the program recipients. It's just, I mean, of course, if they're going to process these payments and get them out, they got to get paid to do that. So thank you. I don't even know are we getting another round? Yeah, 2 rounds. Sujus Masi, Mr. Chair, for the time.
Senator July, you recognize.
Thank you all for being here and for your answers. And I'd like to also recognize and thank the child care owners and personnel and parents who are here, who are very much concerned about payments and stability of this program. I think it's a huge concern for all of us, and it should be. Really, this is going to impact so many things if we can't stabilize this, including, our workforce, including just so many different things that currently we are benefiting from. So my first question is, so the spreadsheet you gave us there are 4 grants. All of these show that they expired September 2025. What is your active grant today?
If I'm not mistaken, the only active grant is the current CCDF grant.
CCDF.
This fund.
Okay, but none of these CCDF.
Correct.
So it's different.
That's it. All those grants that you see help supplement through the years.
All right, so the CCDF is not even shown here.
Right. So CCDF is the current grant we have.
All right.
At $22 million.
All right. And under this grant, have you ever received $29 million?
CCDF?
Yes.
29 million?
Sorry, to clarify, under discretionary or mandatory? 29 million?
Yes. You seem to have budgeted $29 million for fiscal year 2026 for child care subsidies and personnel.
That's the projection.
So I'm just asking, where did you get that number? Did you ever receive $29 million from CCDF? If you knew these were all expiring, so moving forward, what were you expecting?
So that's what we're asking for this supplement. So that was the total program cost, which is subsidy. Yeah, so that's what
Senator, I think you're mentioning what I mentioned earlier about $29 million.
Mm-hmm.
That's the total cost to run the program.
Right.
Of the total cost to run the program, $25 million of the total cost is payments to providers.
Yes.
And the difference is operation.
Right. where did you get the 29 million? Have you ever received 29 million in CCDF funding?
No, but we were able to, last year, that's what we were running at. And so.
And how were you, so you were running at that in 2025.
Operating at 29 million.
Showing all these 4 different programs, 4 different grants.
I'm sorry, Senator. Can you give me a minute?
Yeah.
So this is FY 20. So, Senator, for FY26 is the 29 that we're projecting. And then in FY25, the overall was 25.9 mil.
That you received?
No, so that's operations and not received. That was our total operations, personnel and operation.
That was your cost?
Yeah, the cost. And so what we did was we used our FY25 funding and any lapses from any of these other grants that expired in 2025 to cover the differences.
All right, so is it fair to say you never expected to receive 29 million from CCDF? There was no reason to expect that, but we were just running the program.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, that explains a lot. All right. On this sheet, it shows that the programs administered through GUİHAN. Does GUİHAN still have any funds for any of these programs for 2026?
No, Senator. There are no more grant funds, and it was always held by DOA and Public Health. The funds never were at GUİHAN. We just administered the programs.
All right, so none of these funding sources listed here that went through 2020 through 2025 are available?
Not at GUİHAN.
Are they available, Mr. Byrd?
No, Senator, they're all expired.
Okay. So, Mr. Byrne, the governor announced that she was going to pay $5 million, but today you're telling us only $3.2 million was paid. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Why not the 5?
I don't have the balance. I only have invoices totaling 3.2 million.
Oh, so she could have paid 5 if she had 5 million in invoices, but she didn't have the invoices? They're saying
Correct.
They have a 1.2 million in invoices being held because we don't
Being
have funds.
processed. The reason why he didn't pay out 3.5 million is because he only had 3.2 of invoices to pay.
Okay, so there's still some that, so you can pay June as soon as you process your
As
invoices.
soon as the process and the clearing, at the time when Mr. Byrne paid 3.2, it included some June clean invoices. We are cleaning it up, and as soon as those invoices are done, it will be batched.
How long is it going to take? Why is this an irregular process? It seems we get calls a lot about some people are getting paid, some are not. It's taking a long, long time. So for this patch of June that you have processing, how long will it take?
Yeah. Thank you, Senator, for your question. Yes, it seems like it's very haphazard, but it's because providers also have 90 days to get invoices in. And so when they get invoices in, we still have to do the due diligence, or the staff has to do the due diligence in making sure that it's accurate. So vetting that out. I'm just going to say the 90-day vendor providers, it's not unusual for providers to, today in July, probably give us a March, April.
Sure. What is your standard operating procedure? How long does it take you to process? What can we say to the providers today that they should expect? What is going to be our standard?
So if invoices are turned in timely and they are actually correct and signed, because a lot of them are turned in and they're not signed or it's not clear, then the staff can do it within the week to get it processed, and then it's sent down to DOA, and then it's their time again to process it.
Mr. Byrne has told me in the past that he processes whatever he receives from DOA in batches, and so there's really no delay at DOA. Is that correct?
You know, generally that's the case, Senator. Please understand that sometimes we get a lot of people sending in things at the same time, and we have to determine what should be prioritized and what shouldn't. In this particular case, we made extreme efforts to get those payments out.
All right. Okay, so if you process June, he's going to pay June. He has that money. Can I ask what the funding source was for the $5 million?
There were funds at Public Health that appeared to be available because they would not be used fully in the year. So we allocated bits and pieces from all those accounts.
They're from different accounts. Can you tell us what kind of funds those are? Are those going to be available in 2027 or even in the next few months? Will there be more funds like that available?
I think Mr. Carlson suggested a few days ago that taking an account of this, knowing that we paid it, probably Public Health will not have any lapses in fiscal 26.
So what kind of funding did that come from?
It's like, I would say, like 60 different accounts that were considered and little parts of it contemplated to piece this together because of the urgency of the situation.
All right. So, Mr. Byrne, you're familiar with this situation, and as was mentioned earlier, there was no request for this funding for FY27. What is the plan for FY27?
I'm listening, Senator, to all that's going on. Obviously, there is a concern for fiscal 27, and I certainly would be very interested to know how this is going to be prioritized and resolved. But I don't have that answer for you because I don't know at this moment.
Administrator Moffinis, can you tell us again, for the CCDF funds, what have you received in previous years? What are the lump sums? What are the totals? Mm-hmm.
So, Senator, right now in front of me, I do have only for FY25 and 26. So in FY25, we had a total received 22.8 million. And previous years would be either, generally speaking, it would be either similar or below. It wouldn't, 22 is the highest we have received for a combination of discretionary and mandatory. When I first started in 2022, when the division first stood up, I recall it being at like 17 million.
Okay. So it's great that we received 22 million based on this record, and we were it's kind of unexplainable that we banked on 29 million. There was no indication that we might receive that. That's why the director's saying we're pretty sure this is all we're going to receive, because that is the maximum you've ever received in previous years. Were you aware, Mr. Byrne, that they were banking on 29 but only going to receive 22?
No, and actually I look back, I mean, 22 has been the historical receipt.
Yes.
I mean, you could argue, of course, that that should increase because costs increase, but apparently it hasn't.
All right. Do you have a potential plan for 2027, fiscal year 2027? Have you received any indication of what are we going to do here? This is really a huge stability issue. Because if we pass this bill today, it takes care of the remaining months of 2026 only. Right?
So basically, if we're going to continue running at this cost, it would be a request to the legislature for supplemental. That's one option. The other option is if we do not, that means we will draw back the eligibility criteria, which will mean that we will lose more children under subsidies and less families will receive the benefit. That's the two ranges. Either we get the money supported by the legislature to maintain where we are now, or we have to draw back the eligibility criteria to live within our federal dollars.
All right, is the congressman aware of this issue? That we need more and that we're not getting it regularly?
Not that I am personally aware of.
All right. There were questions that were submitted to us by Lindsay Bennett, who's the owner of a daycare, and these are questions of the Child Care Association. There's quite a few of them, Mr. Chair, and I would ask if Public Health has the opportunity, if they be given a copy of that and allowed to answer. I'm sure that would be very helpful for all of us and for all of them. And most of these are really, what are we going to expect going forward, right? Like how many days for payment, and we opened a lot of daycares, and maybe Gita can speak to this as well. We opened a lot of daycares based on all this funding that we had received during these 4 years, right, of CARES Act, ARPA stabilization, ARPA discretionary. But if we are not going to receive these funds anymore, it doesn't look sustainable for us. But you're saying with the CCDF, we can provide at least, hopefully, 22 million. And with the legislative subsidy, it looks like we might have to subsidize forever if we want to keep the same amount of enrollment, correct?
Correct.
Unless the feds change their programs. And, okay. Are there any other programs in public health for FY27 that can be used to fund this? Or not programs, but, funding. For example, they found some in FY26 that was not going to be used, they said.
I am unsure about other programs funding CCDF, but I might have to defer to my director on that one.
All right. All right. How many children is the difference between 22 million and 29 million? The 7 million, what's the difference in children that might be impacted?
Senator, can you go ahead and repeat that question? I want to clarify that.
Yeah, so if we only receive 22 million instead of 29 million, what is the number of students that might need to be or will not be receiving subsidy compared to today?
Yeah, Senator, at 22 million, we would not pay June, July, August, and that would be it for the program. Because every month, right, we pay for the same number of kids.
All right, yeah. No, let's say in FY27. If we banked on 22 million instead of 29, how many students does that cover? If that's what we're going to
So are you asking if there is no local appropriation?
Correct.
Okay. We will run those numbers. If there is no local appropriation, we would, with the current eligibility, we will run the numbers to tell you just how many kids that will only cover the 22 million. I think that's what you're asking.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
you give-
because it looks like if that's the funding we're expecting, and there's no indication from the federal government that that might increase next year, that's what we should actually project. And knowing what the difference is going to be is very important for the senators, because that's how we're going to know, you know.
Senator, I have some numbers for you.
Okay.
And this is based on trying to keep as many kids and families in the program. Well, I'm sorry. It's still at 25 and not 22. She wants to know how much 22, how many kids 22 will pay for. Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought I had some numbers for you. But at 25 million CCDF funding, we would lose about 20% of the kids, 591 kids.
How many?
But you're asking for 22,
Yeah,
so please
but go ahead
give
and
me
tell
a
me
minute.
25. Since you've got that calculated, what is it? You lose what, 20%? What is the number?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I wanted to explain what we're looking at here.
Okay.
There was a study based on our TAs with our federal counterparts.
Can you just make it louder?
Sorry. So there was a study and an evaluation to look at other states and their income brackets and what would work with Guam. And under our federal TAs, there was a suggestion of kind of mirroring Mississippi's eligibility criteria and income thresholds. So that would mean, first off, we would still have to decrease the income threshold compared to what we have now. But based on that report that was worked on at 25 million, you're looking at an average from what we are now to dropping to like 2,366 kids, which is basically a 20% cut in the services of the number of children we can provide for.
How many children is that?
591 kids less.
Okay.
We can work on the numbers at 22.
All right, thanks. Yeah, well, that's pretty dramatic already, and that's 25. So, yeah, this is really big. Okay, so the child care providers who have invoices submitted can expect those to be processed within 7 days. You said within a week, right? Normally, if everything's there. Those will go to DOE. DOA will pay those as soon as you receive them. Okay, that's at least takes care of June invoices. Now, this money that you're asking us for is to cover July, August, September. And, okay, I definitely think we should cover that. It gives you a little bit of time, but I think we need a plan as soon as possible. This cannot go on like this. There must be a plan, and it must be based on, yes, on, you know, all the factors that we have in front of us. And this is not going to only impact kids. It might also impact, you know, employees, daycares, families who rely on these daycares. I mean, that's huge. That's the biggest part. So, all right. And it's really shocking, actually. But I do hope they get paid quickly, at least for these June invoices, and anything else that's previous should not be held up, right? Unless there's a technical problem. Okay, so everything should be paid up until June by next week. And yeah, I'm all for passing the amount that you need to cover for the next few months, but I'm very, very, very concerned about how we're planning this going forward. You know, counting on money that we kind of don't have any reason to expect it's going to come in, federally at least. And all right, but I'm very grateful.
Senator, can I, if I can, as you mentioned, I think moving forward, I think if the body can discuss not knowing or having uncertainty of what's coming in for CCDF for FY27, or even when it's coming in or how much it's going to come in, how can, I'm seeking help from the legislature, how can the legislature help maybe front that?
No, I understand. That's why,
okay.
but I'm also asking you for the same. I think you should provide us with details of, you know, what are the demographics of everybody involved? How many daycares are we talking about with 500 some children, right, impacted if you change based on your evaluation? Who did that evaluation? I'm not suggesting we go there, but I'm just saying that's, I think, what you need to show. Is like, this
Okay.
is the difference between, yeah, local funds or not.
We'll get that to you.
Yes.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you very much.
Do your follow-ups in round 2. Senator Perez, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning to the panel. I think a lot of questions were asked. I'm looking at the numbers. I'm really honing in on the numbers here, and that the first quarter, 11,400,332.19 was spent. And so if we're looking at the full year, if we're going to base it on that first quarter, we're going to need 45 million to service the 2,700 students. Is that not correct?
No, Senator. We're asking today from the body $7.6 million to pay for the remaining invoices of June and anticipated invoices coming in for August, September, October, because everything prior to June is already paid.
Yeah, I understand that. You mean 6.7, not 7.6?
7.6.
Okay. Yeah, because I was looking at the packet that we received, and I noticed the difference in one of the flyers that was presented. There was 11,400,000 plus spent, believe in the first quarter, and then the next month it was additional 2.6 million. So the numbers are kind of all over the place.
What you need to know is, as of today, we received all the CCDF funding that we will ever get in this fiscal year, which is 22, sorry, where's that? Which is 22 million 800, I'm sorry, yeah. We received all the CCDF money that we're going to get at 22 million.
Yeah, I guess the point is it's not sustainable, right? Because, I mean, when I'm looking at your flyers, so if you look at there's a packet here. It's on the March. So it states subsidy. We're happy to share that we have processed $11,400,332.19 for FY26. And so that was just for the first quarter. So if you calculate by 4, then it comes up to 45 million. So I guess, is this incorrect, your flyer?
Yeah, no, it's not incorrect. If I stated it, I must have paid it, or at least processed it. But that could be, 29 million is the entire program budget. 25 million of the 29 is just for subsidies.
Sorry, did you see this newsletter by any chance? If you could take a look at this, the ones that were handed out.
I don't have that.
If you could take a look at that.
packet.
Maybe if we can provide a copy to the panel, Mr. Chair.
Sure, you want to recess for that, or do you want to just keep going?
Yeah, it'd be good for her to take a look and see.
Sure, 1 minute recess. Okay, they have it in front of them, Senator. Can you just refer them to the flyer? Committee of the Whole is back in order. Can you refer them to the flyer that you're discussing?
The parent newsletter, March 26, 2026, on the subsidy portion, if you look at that, the verbiage there, it states the amount that was processed for the FY26, and this is the first quarter, or perhaps even the
That's
first.
for 6 months. That's correct. That's half of 22.
But this is a March 2026.
That's
and then this is for FY26. Oh, for the fiscal year you're talking
Yes,
about
the fiscal
since October.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
The
Thank you.
funding comes in fiscal years.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, that helps. And then, but if you look at the next month, it's 2.6 million for a month's usage. So what does that equal to? 2.6 times
It's about an
12,
average of 2.1
30
million a month.
Okay. And this was without the subsidy or with the subsidies? I'm sorry, is this with the co-share, the family co-share?
Oh, no. When does the co-share? Starting January, the co-share kicked in. So yes, the first quarter of the fiscal year, it was at 100%. And then we capped the max in January, and families started putting in January their cost share.
Okay, what was the amount for the full subsidy for that first quarter?
At 100%?
Yeah.
At 100%. Just get October, November, December. Right? Go ahead. That's for October, November, and
So
December.
for
prior to-
October, November, and December,
Prior
the
to
total was 7.25 mil that we paid out.
Okay, for the full subsidy. All right.
So if it's 7.25 for the first quarter, that equates to 100% payout. If you multiply that by 4, that's how much it's going to cost the program to roll back the cost share to families.
Okay. All right. And then in looking at there's a PowerPoint presentation by BCCS. And so in the previous years when we're flush with cash, right? In 2024 and 2025, it's roughly 4,200 individuals that were provided for. And then I'm looking at the amount of money that we received. So for instance, in the program Penilan, it was 102 million, is that correct? From 2022 to 2026?
What page are you looking at, Senator?
This is
so
a
we can
financial
follow?
investment in the industry. So maybe administrator.
Do we have that?
Yeah, it's in this whole document, yeah. So it's on, if you keep turning.
Senator, do we have that you're looking at?
Yes, it's here. I'm sorry, it's a different one, this one, the BCCS.
I don't see that slide here in the packet that I was given.
Yeah, that's a different one, actually.
Oh.
I think it was provided by the Bureau of Child Care Services.
I'm getting it now. Thank you.
And perhaps while you're looking through it, can Administrator Garcia talk about the program, how it was rolled out, and what was it used to pay for?
Hi, thank you for the question. During the onset of COVID, the governor had asked GUİHA to assist with rolling out some grant programs to help sustain the child care industry. And so to do this, we administered different programs. One to sustain the existing child cares, centers. The second was to build new centers. The third was to create a boot camp for child care workers and also for child care managers so that, again, we're trying to solidify the industry. We also provided a grant for the village mayors who were also providing some child care programs, after-school programs, as well as they're maintaining the facilities that are used in the village. We also helped We also offered a program for relative care. Again, we knew it existed. We didn't know how many existed or how they were being cared for. And so the goal of that program was to provide a count of children and being cared for by relatives outside of their own homes, and to make sure that they were provided a safe and secure environment. And then we also did a workforce retention program and a Warrior grant. And again, all of this was to build up the industry, try and create some flow of workers into the industry, and to provide some community care by supporting different entities that provide child care services.
Okay. So did any of it go to the subsidies?
So we just administered the programs. The funding was administered between public health and DOA, and again, and BBMR, who uploaded the program. And so the process was, we received applications, we reviewed and underwrote those applications, we reviewed it with public health, and then once they passed and were approved by public health, we then put together batches of payment requests that was certified by public health and sent down to DOA for payments. So again, cash did not come through GUİHA at all.
Okay. Does DOA have any record of how much was used for subsidies for childcare or DPHSS through that program, specific program?
I'm sorry, I thought is the question to me?
Yeah, to anybody else in the panel.
From what I understand, all of that was from ARPA, from American Rescue Plan, and all the COVID grants only, and not anything directly received through their, well, it was part of community development block grants, but those grants were increased during the COVID period.
Okay, just this is a clarification question based on the testimony provided. So that Pugaman Ipanilan, was there any subsidies for the families, and what portion of that was given?
Yes, so under the child care, there was, because we expanded the eligibility through program in Panilan, the invoices still came through the Bureau of Child Care Services, or we processed it. Even though GUİHA was the one who put out the program, we worked with them, but we were the ones that received the invoices and paid out. And that was, yes, that was using also funding through ARPA.
Yeah, so how much was paid out for subsidies with that program?
I don't have that breakdown. It was a cumulative. So what you're looking at is, on this presentation was a 30 million, which was inclusive of any kind of, a combination of grants. So we're talking discretionary, mandatory, and even like the ARPA.
Yeah, so but the BCCS one, if you look at the financial investment in industry page.
What page
yeah,
are you
so
on?
this page right here, it doesn't have a page number.
Sorry, getting there.
It's kind of midway.
Okay. Yeah, there's no breakdown. I mean, it just shows the 102 with GUİHA.
And that's 102 million?
Yeah.
Would you be able to provide a breakdown of the cumulative amounts that were provided in subsidies?
I can have the team look into that.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I guess, yeah, the question moving forward, obviously these grants are done with, right? We can't go back. I agree with the retiring speaker that, is there a way to evaluate your entire programs so you can reallocate funding to assist with child care subsidies?
Unfortunately, Senator, we have a max. The program guidelines says we can only use 90%, 5%, 90% for subsidies. I think that's what Are you asking within public health or within the grant itself?
I guess, yeah, the grant itself. I mean, there is, if you look in another page provided, it does talk about CCDF formula grant.
That's the grant we have today.
Yes, direct services, it says 75% is direct services. So the numbers are different, the breakdown's different here. But
well, when the 75% could be direct services, meaning provider payments, as well as direct service training.
yeah, and then it says quality improvement activities, 12%, non-direct services, and then administrative activities. So it does break it down between 4 categories.
Just to clarify, the 75% could be a minimum, so we have been paying a higher rate of subsidy.
Okay. To Gita. So there's something called community contributions within the qualifying certificates. Is there an opportunity to identify a sustainable funding source within the qualifying certificate community contribution programs?
So with qualifying certificate community contributions, the annual contribution relies on their ability to comply. And so 1 year, there may be issues with their compliance, and then they're given a year or 2 to reconcile. So as a steady funding source, I would not recommend it. For instance, we have a contributor right now that although they're compliant, they're delayed in providing their community contribution because of the slowdown in the economy, and so we're giving them some time to make that payment, and so to rely on that is not highly recommended. And then right now, our community contributions. We have a board resolution that when we do have enough for a program, we can provide guidelines that support healthcare, cultural preservation, economic development, and then just in community support. But again, it's like 1 year, we couldn't do any grants because the funding was just not available. But just recently, we did a $300,000 grant awards to about 17 grantees from our community contributions. Nothing to do with child care at this moment.
Yeah, so I think it is disheartening to get these emails from workers within the child care industry saying that they lost their jobs because their child care is closing down. And I know there was a lot of effort to build this up, but was there any kind of plan, a sustainability plan for these child care facilities that were encouraged to open up? And what can we do now? I guess, this is why we're here. I mean, obviously, thankfully, we have surplus funds, right, that we can appropriate, which I support. But I think it's important to think about how to move forward sustainably if the federal government doesn't increase the amount of funding that's coming to Guam. So, obviously, we're looking more towards the local coffers, and I think this is one of the things that we have to look at because, child care is really critical, as you know, and it sets up a child for their future. One of the things I advocate for is early childhood literacy, which I'm very thankful that, Director, you supported. And we really need to ensure this industry is stood up and that we could support this particular industry because it really impacts the future of this island. So, yeah, was there any plan in place as far as sustainability when we put out these programs?
Well, I know when we were working with one of the programs we had was, for instance, setting up a new child care centers. You know, we had to work with them on their business plan. What happened, I guess, during COVID is a lot of them began to rely on the subsidies that were coming through, and so now that we're trying to wean them off, it's a little bit harder. If you look at the nationwide, and this is some of the things that we learned during the program administration, is the cost of child care on Guam is maybe roughly $700, whereas nationwide it's about $1,500 per child. And so how do you sustain that? And you know, Guam being a small community, so I mean, how much can we increase to provide that quality care? It's a real challenge, and you know, whether it's fighting for Guam to be recognized at a higher threshold, so we get a higher subsidy from national public, you know, from the nationwide closer, you know, and an island, our cost of living is high, so. You know, we try and sustain them, but, you know, again, it comes down to affordability and, you know, how much can the government continue to carry?
But as far as market is concerned, how many kids need child care? Have you assessed that at all?
We would have to add all the child care businesses and ask them how many kids are enrolled in total, with knowing that only a percentage of that is CCDF, to give you that figure. Do we track? Unfortunately, the child care providers are small businesses, and so we're only tracking our kids. We're not tracking how many kids they service in total. But we could put a survey out. They could give us the numbers. They may not give us the numbers. We could try to get the numbers. That's the best we can ask. We're only tracking our CCDF touched children. For example, if a provider A, we can say 100 kids are, this is an example, is being subsidized by CCDF. I'm not quite sure what their total population of kids, maybe it's 300 and 200 is a different revenue mix. You know, I'm not sure, you know, parents are paying in full or payment plan. I'm not sure how their business, each business is run very differently based on how they're going to run their business for a long time.
Yeah, I noticed you have a sliding scale when it comes to reimbursements. That's probably something to think about as far as potential solutions.
Senator, if I can share that we have been blessed to have or been able to give during the COVID years with different pots of money, allowing us to subsidize child providers. We've been blessed to be able to cover 100%. Guam has never put in local dollars to child care. It's always been 100% subsidized. With the exception, with the exception of the parents' match. I stand corrected. But we are at a point where the question is, will Guam be able, or is Guam willing to help families by giving a subsidy, a local subsidy? For the record, states have always subsidized child care. State taxes has always subsidized child care in the states. So there's CCDF money, state money, and then they help families and children. I think we're at a juncture in our time after, I'm not sure how many years that this has been going on for, child care CCDF funding. I don't know how long the program's been running, since the beginning of time, but I think we're at a point where we need to decide whether Guam is going to do likewise and help by putting in the subsidies. So today I asked for the $7.6 million that will get us through the fiscal year.
A question for DOA as far as processing payments. So one of the things, the feedback we've been getting is that sometimes it takes 3 months, right, to get paid. And that, is there, I mean, you mentioned earlier that you can process it within 3 to 4 days, error-free invoice. I guess the problem is when there's a delay in payment, there's a delay in salaries, and you know it really puts a hardship on the child care facility. Is there any solutions that you can provide to kind of address that problem?
Senator, DOA is very well aware of the effect of delayed payments on childcare and all other non-profits that perform services for government agencies and employ people to do that. We attempt to pay out these all these invoices and Medicaid and all these other obligations as quickly as we can. As I mentioned, sometimes we get a bunching of payments because we're at the end of the month or we're getting towards the end of the month, but we're very well aware of the need to pay out these amounts as quickly as we reasonably can. For these types of payments, like I say, we try and prioritize those because we know that the providers, whether it is childcare or other non-profits, have to pay their employees. But having said that, we rely upon agencies to provide the information to us to be able to do that. And you know, from time to time, we actually chase agencies knowing that a payment has to be made. And that takes further time out of DOA's processing time, where we have to chase agencies to submit their invoices timely. But the actual processing time, as I answered to the speaker, is less than a week.
Yes, Director, you had a comment.
Yeah, you asked if there's a solution to the delays in payment. Again, to be clear, the delay in payment, one of the causes, not all the cause, but one of the causes is the delay in the receipt of federal funding. My suggestion would be for the legislature to front the entire funding, and then when we get it, and we don't know when we get it, then we pay it back. That's the only way, or we're going to continue waiting for the funding to pay. That would be the only way I can think of, like in FY27. If we have other pots of dollars, like local dollars, to be able to pay child care businesses their subsidy without having to wait for the uncertainty of federal dollars that we don't have a regular cadence anymore of when we get it. At least that's one suggestion. Of course, there may be others. Thank you.
Okay, I think those are my questions for now, but I was looking for solutions to help, you know, streamline and expedite, you know, for the businesses that are closing. Is there any solutions to that or any comments.
Again, the child care businesses is a mix of revenue. Unless the child care business is only depending on CCDF funding, then I can see how they might say they're running out, they're going to be closing, because maybe that's all they're taking, kids with CCDF funding. But I don't know that. I have to believe that child care providers take all kinds of kids, CCDF kids, straight pay kids. I'm not sure what other programs there are, maybe to employment subsidy, employer subsidy funding. I don't know what each business plan is for every provider. And so not knowing if they're saying that our subsidy, that's slow coming because the federal dollars are slow coming, is going to close their business, then my assumption is that that business is only taking CCDF kids and doesn't have a mix of kids. That's my assumption. Because if that's the case, if they have a mix of kids, then other revenues, you know, like parents who pay up front, 100%. I mean, they have that revenue coming in as well. But I really can't say, because that's a business decision that a business revenue mix will make a decision on, am I opening a child care center just for CCDF kids? Or am I opening a child care center for children of Guam, and some may be CCDF funded and some may not be. So I'm not sure, Senator. If you're getting providers saying that they're going to close their shop because the CCDF kid funding is slow coming, it's probably because maybe they're only taking CCDF kids. That would be my assumption.
I think there is definitely an issue here because the industry was building up, but then there was no long-term plan to sustain them. Unfortunately, because the funding was all federal funding. So I suppose that, like you said, maybe local funding. We need to look at the local funding to help support this industry. I think it's a worthwhile investment.
Thank you.
All right, Sujus Masi.
Senator Montanani, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to Public Health and as well as the daycare, child care center owners and maybe even parents for joining us and watching your legislature in action. First, I have to say just for myself, and I know a majority of my colleagues also, we want to help. But we need some clarity, right, and more specifics. And so I'm just kind of want to go through some of the letters that we received. The November 10th letter, 2025, this was to the Child Care Development Fund providers regarding the delays, the notification of delay in CCDF provider payments. And it says that this delay is due to the timing of the federal funding release, which is beyond our control. In the meantime, Public Health is making a one-time temporary adjustment by reallocating funds from other programs and contracts that can be deferred at this time in order to prioritize child care payments. Less than a month later, or about a month later, another letter was issued December 1st, 2025. And again, I think the speaker had said this, that the delays occurred. Several factors contributed to slower processing times, including the upgrading of Government of Guam line agencies to the new Guam Financial Management System, funding allotments and system adjustments following the conclusion of the federal government shutdown. These factors did not affect all packets uniformly, which is why some centers received partial payments at different times. A month later, January 3rd, 2026, this was a press release. Public Health Monitor's National Child Care Funding Reports confirms no official notice of payment interruptions for Guam. Now, in that press release, it states that Public Health and BCCS, the Bureau of Child Care Services, was made aware of recent news circulation from the Department of Health and Human Services regarding the freezing of all child care payments to all states amidst fraud allegations in Minnesota. At this time, Public Health has not received official notice. Public Health recognizes the potential impact caused by the allegations in Minnesota could have on local programs. Public Health is confident that our internal processes follow all protocols. We assure that compliance and program integrity is our top priority, and we remain steadfast to reporting accordingly and maintaining collaborative partnership with our federal counterparts. April 2026, it states that from the director, I'm deeply concerned by recent remarks suggesting the U.S. cannot sustain investments in Medicaid, Medicare, and child care due to competing national priorities such as war spending. Then it talks about the federal landscape regarding uncertainty this fiscal year. Guam is experiencing delays in the release of federal funds, including second and third quarter allotments for the CCDF, which directly impacts our ability to administer programs effectively and provide timely support to the families we serve. These delays are affecting provider payments for January, February, March, participant reimbursement cost of 300 families, program stability, and overall service delivery across critical areas, including child care assessment. And also in this April release, it says, given these developments, we must prepare for the possibility of significant reductions in federal funding for child care, or even the elimination of such support. June 30th, and we'd all started receiving all these letters from child care centers, daycare owners, and even parents. So June 30th, I wrote a letter to you, Director, regarding my concerns about all of these issues. And I also offered any help, if there's any legislative, budgetary, policy, or administrative barriers contributing to this situation, I would appreciate the opportunity to work collaboratively with your department. By that afternoon, by the end of the day, we saw a press release. Same day, June 30th, Governor Leon Guerrero directs $5 million in local funds to protect child care providers and family amid federal funding delays. Now, today we're hearing about this $5 million, and I'm glad one of my other colleagues asked about the funding source, because we tried to get that out of you, Mr. Byrne, during the budget proceedings, and you weren't necessarily clear where that local funds were going to come from. And so now you're saying that out of the $5 million, $3.2 million was released, but it was from money from within the Department of Public Health?
Yes, that would be the appropriate source.
But in November, and this was issued by you, Ms. Arreola, that it was a one-time temporary adjustment by reallocating funds from other programs and contracts that can be deferred at this time in order to prioritize child care payments. So this was actually something that you could have done for this money that you needed, this $5 million? I mean, why did DOA need to step in? Why did we see this press release from the governor? Just trying to understand.
Because I needed to pay for that quarter's payments. And so I needed to ask my bosses for help, and she directed Ed Byrne to find the money. Where he found the money, I think
he found the money within public
health, but not probably. I mean, I don't think it's from CCDF funding, because there was no CCDF funding is federal. It says local.
No, I
right?
understand that. Yes, but so was that the $3.2 million federal funding that you moved around, or was it local funds? Because the press release says local funds.
It was local funds. Could I just take a few moments to talk just generally about federal funds and drawdowns and the challenges that we have experienced. For a long time, and especially during COVID, the drawdowns, especially for public health, because many of the drawdowns go through the Health and Human Services drawdown facility. It's very, very quick. We could put in a drawdown request one day and the funds would appear the next day. It's well documented that after the Doge exercise, they indicated, Health and Human Services indicated, that there may be delays on drawdowns, and additionally, supplementary information might be required in order to get the drawdown. So what started out as a very reliable and regular drawdown process became very irregular. And then, of course, at the end of last year, the federal government shut down for some days, and we were unable to get any drawdowns at all. The situation has recovered greatly since then, but we still get delays, not so much for public health, who generally, if they have a federal allocation, we are able to draw it down. But there are some other agencies that have experienced greater delays in their drawdown ability, or DOA does the drawdown, but in the ability to get funds. So in this particular case, earlier in the year, the director herself decided to make a one-time payment out of local funds. In this particular case, the governor directed us to make a make-up payment out of local funds in order that the childcare providers, at least up to the point where we have paid, which, as the director says, is partway through June, these payments were made available, and the childcare providers were made good because they have expenses to pay, which actually probably they themselves were unable to make until they got these April, May, and June payments.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Byrne, for that. Really appreciate it. And all I was trying to understand was in November, you used local money within your agency to help pay for these delays. And then when you requested, or when this press release came out in June for the $5 million, it turns out, it didn't come from the general fund, it came from within public health again. So I'm just kind of wondering, why didn't you just use this internal money all along to help?
Senator, we used, if we delayed or we discontinued the grant program, or what we were paying some CCDF money to GIBWIC and DYA to help their kids, we prioritized it, did not pay them, and prioritized and paid subsidies. That's the money that was used at the time. And maybe Ms. Trish can add on if she has anything.
Director's correct. What we did was we just paused that payment to other contracts in order to prioritize paying out subsidy. It was internally within the Bureau of Child Care Services. It wasn't from other programs within public health for that first-time payment.
Okay. Can you explain the difference between discretionary versus mandatory CCDF funding?
Basically, they're just two different pots. They generally have the same spending authorities. You can pay for subsidies, personnel, and operations. Mandatory comes in later. When it first started, it was given later on. It's more of a newer pot of money that came during COVID, when we used to only receive discretionary. So it's just different pots of money, but same funding source. And you
all
can use it for the same
CCDF.
thing.
It's all CCDF.
Correct, it's all CCDF funding.
So that 22 million, was that discretionary or
It's a
mandatory?
combination of both of them.
That's all of it?
Yes.
And do those numbers change, the discretionary and mandatory?
Based on FY 25 and 26, it's consistent. 17 mil for discretionary for FY 25 and 26, 4 million for mandatory 25 and 26.
And it's probably the same, Senator, because CCDF, the feds look at enrollment. So, you know, the enrollment was probably the same, so that's why they kept the same number. So it's a formula that the feds do. And so at least the last 2 fiscal years, or last fiscal year and this fiscal year, correct me if I'm wrong, is the same amount of CCDF funding total received.
So when those allotments are released that you keep referring to, is it a combination or is it
It
discretionary
depends.
and then
It's
mandatory?
It depends on how the NOA comes in. You know, the NOA will tell us, the notice of award will tell us, this is discretionary and this is the amount.
Correct. The NOA does describe it as either a discretionary or mandatory funding.
Right, and these are notices of award, but don't you apply for these grants? Or
No,
it's
we do
just-
not. These are formulary
Formulary.
grants, so we do not apply for them.
Okay. And just to go over this document that you provided, the Child Care and Development Block Grant Relief Funds, this is on top of what you receive.
During COVID, correct.
During COVID years.
Was any of this grant funds returned? Or you
Oh, no.
utilized all of it?
Everything. Everything was paid out.
Okay.
And used to pay subsidies. Remember, it's also the time, Senator, when the eligibility was expanded. So more people, more families during COVID because we had the money to expand. So the eligibility was wider, so more people benefited
And so-
during those dollar years.
So I want to go back to these letters. November 10th, again, one-time temporary adjustment by reallocating the money. Was all the money, returned to the programs that it impacted at the time? You mentioned GIPWIC.
No, we had to. You want to talk about how the GIPWIC and how we're dealing with it now?
And is this the 4 million?
Can you repeat your question? I'm sorry.
Based on this November letter regarding the whole child care delay in payments, it said that Public Health is making this one-time temporary adjustment by reallocating funds. And you had mentioned GIPWIC and taking funds that would have gone to them from the CCDF. Mm-hmm.
Our question is,
So we did provide them their first allotment, and no other payment has been made.
And is there any money? So does that mean there's money owed to them or no?
No.
Because I know that, in the oversight hearing, we were told that, they were cut. That's it.
Right. Because we prioritize subsidies.
Okay.
Not unfortunately, good, but unfortunately we couldn't continue helping GIPWIC.
And to follow up on the December 1st letter regarding the GFMS, the Guam Financial Management System, you guys are all up to date? You're
with how to
linked
do
with
the new
system?
batching.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
From the January 3rd press release regarding the situation in Minnesota, has Public Health received any letter from HHS regarding any sort of compliance issues?
No, ma'am. No, we're not on the radar, and that's a good thing. We have not been notified. We didn't get letters the way Minnesota did.
Okay, and the April 8th letter, where it states that we must prepare for the possibility of significant reductions in federal funding for child care or even the elimination of such support. Have you guys put together any sort of plan, any preparations that you've undertaken to prepare for this possibility? Because it certainly looks like this is happening.
Yes, as we mentioned, Mississippi. Yeah. We do have a plan. We're hoping that the plan will, as mentioned earlier, the Mississippi model.
Minnesota?
No, Mississippi. Earlier, Minnesota was the highlighted concerned state that put a highlight on all CCDF funding. But your question is, do we have a plan in the near future in the event that funding is interrupted or doesn't come at all? The plan is, one plan could be, again, local dollars for the first time helping, or two, we put together an analysis with Mississippi, using Mississippi's analysis, with the possibility, this is before me, I have not taken action on this. It's a proposal from the CCDF funding staff to look at Minnesota, they're both M's, Mississippi, to adjust the income threshold. If we do this, then what's going to happen is the impact. That's what I mentioned earlier, the 20% loss, if we do that. But that, just remember, this is not even, anyway, if the proposal before me that I have not taken action from is we consider, then 20% of the kids currently enrolled will not be eligible. But I just want to say that would be the last resort. I'm hoping that we can maybe get some local dollars for the first time to subsidize this program and keep at least the current number of kids enrolled, since we have already rolled back. We've already rolled back and discontinued first responders. This year, we've already put back parents co-share and the max. And I think doing all that, I think it's a lot of change already for the providers. And the hope is that the legislature can help, for the first time, provide local funding to the program that's been in existence for decades.
And how long has the administration been aware of these issues and the potential that you were going to see these significant reductions and possibly even the elimination of such support?
No, that was my letter saying the possibility of reduction.
Right, no, I'm saying how long has the administration,
Well,
BBMR, been aware?
I think as long as we all have been. You all receive my press releases, and we're all watching national news and, just what's happening. I am aware that things are changing. The uncertainty that I have in managing the department or managing this division is that we're not getting clear answers either from the federal CCDF program. So it's very hard to make decisions when we're asking for guidance from our federal partners and it's not coming either. So we just hope that they will continue to give us the funding and that it's just late. Because remember I mentioned there used to be a real clear cadence every quarter we get it. And so we really know, okay, we're tracking, and we can get CCDF funding, know that we're going to pay the quarter CCDF funding. Now there's not even a cadence on when we get the funding. And there is no, we haven't gotten a letter that said we're cut, but we also not getting the funding the way we received it in the past.
And there's been no explanation from the feds on why there's this
Senator.
change.
Just, just slowing down of how they deposit the money to Guam.
And the reason why I asked how long the administration knew about the situation with these delayed allotments, payments, reimbursement, was because when we were in session on day one, that was not indicated in the letter that was presented to us from BBMR with the concerns that that the governor's, what the governor's concerns were with the budget that we had passed. And so CCDF, all the problems and issues was never ever clearly articulated to the legislature. And quite frankly, myself, even though I had requested expressed if there's any way that I can help you with this situation, and I just never got a response other than the press release that came out from Adelie hours later that $5 million in local funding was going to be appropriated to help with the situation. But my offer still stands.
Absolutely.
In terms of how I can help. One quick question before I go. The Child Care Revolving Fund, how much money is in that fund?
Which fund?
The Child Care Revolving Fund?
I'm not aware.
Established through 10 GCA?
I'm not aware of that fund,
Okay.
Senator.
And perhaps maybe when we come back from lunch, we can get a number for that.
Child Care Revolving Fund? Who funds it? Pardon?
Maybe you can provide your research offline to them, Senator.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Colleagues, at this time, it's 12 o'clock on the button, so we will return at 2 p.m. exactly. We are in recess.